now look to Miss Anna Soubry MP to close the case for the opposition.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President, and thank you to everybody that's spoken. I hope you will agree with me that it has been a really great and very good debate. We've heard from all sorts of different complexions and different parts of the political spectrum. But may I suggest to you, have you ever seen such a ragtag and bobtail of a proposition amongst these speakers that we've heard tonight proposing in this motion? Before us we have two Corbynistas, notwithstanding the fact that it is undoubtedly the fact that socialism and a Labour Party has now been proven to have failed this country, and most importantly, the people who have voted for it, they would actually take us even further to the left. And then we have two proud Brexiteers. Now, I congratulate them on their victory. I hadn't come here tonight to talk about the campaign, but now you mention it. And I have to say this, Mr. President, if there's one thing that really hacks me off, it's when people tell me what I think and what I believe. And it hacks me off even more when I'm told that by a man. I would suggest that on this side, those of us who quite properly urge you in great number to reject this motion, have you not heard an eloquent set of speeches from people who've addressed this motion, first of all by giving us an excellent description, an analysis, an explanation of what liberalism actually is. Elizabeth told us it was about freedom and progressive values. It was about equality. It's about tolerance. It's about respect. It's about an overriding sense of justice. It's about fairness. It's about doing the right thing. It's about believing and trusting in the brilliance of individuals, but at the same time, the ability to come together as a collective to do the best on behalf of everybody, to create a better, more peaceful, more fair and just world. That is what liberalism is about, and I'm proud to embrace it as a conservative. And then we have heard what I thought was a remarkably honest analysis from Dan Hodges. Now, Dan and I come from, I think he was once a member of the Labour Party. I don't hold that against him, of course I don't. But I thought in the speech that he delivered, he gave us a really frank, open and honest analysis of many of the things that have gone wrong on our side, if you like, of the political spectrum. And essentially what he was saying is, yes, these liberal values that have guided us in this country for hundreds of years, and we've heard, Mr. President, some excellent speakers with much better knowledge of history and political history than I have. I'm just an old lawyer, and I hope you won't hold it against me. But we know it's a tradition that is based in British politics that goes back many, many centuries. And Dan was telling us, and it's right and fair to say this, that in more recent times there's been a disconnection between people who believed in those fine values that Elizabeth described to us and the actual reality amongst so many people. And it's right and it's true that we saw much of that in this miserable Brexit campaign. And believe me, it was miserable. And what I say to these two gentlemen here is, far from being smug and proud about your campaign, you should be hanging your heads in shame. I'm a Tory. I've been a Tory all my life. I'm used to abuse. I'm used to people not agreeing with me on many occasions through my student life and then onwards when I came back into politics. But what really isn't right and what makes me angry is when you win by telling lies. And that is what you did. You put on a bus that went into constituencies like mine. You made a promise. You said, we send £350 million each week sent to the EU. That is not true. And in a moment. And then you compounded it by saying to people, and it's money that we will be able to spend here in our NHS when we leave the EU. As Dan said, in your dreams, in effect. And he's right, because the very people that bought this bucket full of nonsense are the very people who will bear the consequences. And many of those people will be you and your children to come. I'm not going to go over, you'll be pleased to know, all of that dreadful campaign. But one of the darkest moments in this nation's history was the sight of your former leader and a man you, sir, were pleased to be part of, Nigel Farage, standing in front of a poster of people fleeing war and terror, seeking a home and peace. Oh, and for the record, it had got absolutely diddly squat with our membership of the EU. It was a failing, perhaps, if there was a criticism of the Schengen Agreement, but we weren't even in it. But what it did at its basest and the most anti-liberal of the values that we hold is that it fueled fear and it preyed on people's prejudices. Now, I need no lessons, if I may say, about people's backgrounds. I'm middle class, I don't have a problem with that. I'm one of those who, actually, I'm a nouveau pauvre. We didn't have any money in our family. And I went to the Heartland Comprehensive in the North Nottinghamshire town. It's a mining town of Worksop. And one of the things I find very interesting, and I would urge all of you that study politics who have an interest in it, come to the city, look at the results of the city of Nottingham. They have been analysed because they declared ward by ward. And these are the uncomfortable truths, ladies and gentlemen. In Conservative Woollerton, the turnout for Remain was 65%. I can take you to more liberal areas of my city and also more Labour liberal middle class areas, and overwhelmingly people voted Remain. In some instances it was a bit tighter. In our most multicultural ward in Nottingham, we just lost by 80 votes. But then go round the circle, the white working class areas of my city, Bestwood, I can name all of them, Bilborough, the Cliftons and the rest of them. Overwhelmingly, in their droves, people voted, first of all, in a way they've never voted in that quantity, and then secondly, overwhelmingly, they voted Leave. And why did they do that? Yes, they're disaffected. Yes, they're disconnected. Not with my party. They don't vote Tory. They don't vote for Harry's party either. They vote for the Labour Party. They've been let down by Labour over generations. And this, at last, was their opportunity to have their say, and they had their say. And the second reason, and the most dominant reason, was immigration. And that is a failing on people like me, that we have failed to make the positive case for immigration. And if nothing else comes of this debate, I would urge you to look at these great liberal values that we talk about, understand at the heart of it is that overriding sense of tolerance, and promise that you as young people will stand up for what you believe and face people, look them in the eye, be true to your values and persuade them that tolerance and decency and migrants and immigration is good for our nation, and we don't care who you are, where you're from, we care and we welcome everybody. And finally, I am going to say this, if I may. It was really quite peculiar in a way, because when I came along with Neil this evening, I said, you know, I'm going to talk about same-sex marriage. And to my amazement, what we've heard is two people. We've heard from Kerry Ann and, of course, from my new best friend, Harry. We've heard exactly that. And what I'd say to Kerry Ann, and even to Stephen, I'd say to Stephen, darling, please don't read too much on the internet, and then you wouldn't stand up and say things which I'm afraid are not true. But I'll forgive you. But what I'd say to Kerry Ann is this. She rightly talks about her life and how nobody, frankly, cares two hoots what colour her skin is or what her sexual orientation is. It matters not, thank God. Because despite the fact that we live in bleak times, the one brilliant and wonderful thing that we still have is the fact that we've got same-sex marriage, and nobody has sought, not even Stephen's former party, to undo that. It's not a problem. It's not a deal. And that gives me huge, fantastic hope that notwithstanding the bleakness of the times that we think that we are in, actually it's not that bad, because those basic liberal values are still running through our society. I urge you, please, to reject this motion. Actually, one person did say quite properly, it's false in any way, because truthfully, the liberalism has always come from the elite. Even the great revolutionaries were always the bourgeois. But now is the time for you all to stand up for those great British values that are essentially liberal values. Reject the bleakness, reject this motion, and look to a brighter future.